Hello and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet, and I am super excited to have Roddie Markel back on our podcast today. She has been on our podcast, like a year ago or so, and she's got a lot of changes since then. So without further ado, Roddie, welcome to our show.
Hi, Shawn. Hi, Janet. Thank you so much for having me.
Hello. You've had a lot of changes since last October. Career changes, all that. So go ahead and let us know what's going on.
Oh, well, last time, we were on the show, or I was on the show with you, I think last April. And a lot of things have changed since then. I am now retired from corporate and doing my coaching business full time, which is just super exciting. And you guys are my first podcast in my new office. I have office space upstairs at the gym that I actually go to, CrossFit Unrestrained. And they were kind enough to rent me a little small space so I can come and hang out here and do podcasts and meet with clients one-on-one. And it's a really exciting time for me. I'm expanding my coaching business and it's going really well. And I just love that I get to serve more people and be retired and kind of have the flexibility to be more available for my family and for my business.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Yay.
So in that meantime, too, you had a little bit of one of the things that kind of pushed you to retirement, maybe, is you had a little bit of a health scare.
I did. I had originally planned on retiring in about 5 years from the corporate world and just continuing coaching as a side hustle kind of thing and building the business until I could actually officially retire. And back in October, I think it was early October, I had a mini stroke. And that was pretty scary. I didn't realize what was happening at the time. And then come to find out, I did have a little bit of a mini stroke and kind of caused me to reevaluate my 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. You know, I had enough money, but I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough time after that incident. And that was a real eye opener for me. And so I pulled the trigger a few weeks later and with the support of my husband and said, hey, let's just do this. Let's take a leap of faith and make it happen. And so I did, and I haven't really looked back. So it's pretty scary time, but also very exciting time.
Well, and it sounds like God had other plans for you, right?
Apparently.
Right. That happens sometimes. And, sometimes in our lives, if things like that don't happen, we'll never make a change sometimes. So sometimes the things we look back on and look at, and at the time it seemed like, it was just a horrible event. We look back and it was, a big crossroad in our life that really changed our lives for the better.
Absolutely. And I really feel that way about this now. Thankfully, it was a mini stroke and nothing major. But yeah, it definitely kind of shifted me in a completely different direction and as far as reevaluating where I wanted to spend the rest of my life and what I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing, because I kind of was like staring at it. I'm like, wow, why am I waiting? Let's just do this.
Right. Yeah. So with that also, you are in a new office, correct?
I am. I was just telling Janet that you guys are like my first podcast in my brand new office at my gym, and I'm super excited about it.
And you used to, when we interviewed you a year or so ago, you were working with mostly middle-aged women and above, but you've expanded your clientele now, correct?
I have. I'm super excited about it. It's kind of like two ends of the spectrum. I get to work with the middle-aged woman, who's kind of lost her way or raised her kids and is like, what's next? Maybe put on a few pounds. And I'm also working with the CrossFit athlete. And I think it's because I'm a middle-aged CrossFit athlete. And so it's amazing how people are coming to me kind of along that same vein. And so now I'm not only coaching for weight loss, but I'm also coaching for performance. Athletes who want to gain muscle, lose fat, lose a little bit of weight, and improve their performance in the gym and get stronger. And so it's kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum in some ways, but I just love it. I'm actually coaching my own daughter.
Oh, really?
job. Good for
That is awesome.
She's doing really well too, by the way.
Yeah. And I would imagine, I mean, you think about it, you coached her, from the time she was born, so why not, right?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
kind of grew her, actually.
although I can say at this point in my boys' lives that, they're young 20-year-olds, I just wouldn't want to be coaching them right now.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was gonna happen with us, but her and I are really close, and she's of course a CrossFit athlete as well, and so we managed to get along okay in that arena. But I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. So speaking of CrossFit, you had a competition over the weekend. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we just finished the CrossFit community. Actually, just finished the CrossFit Open. It's a competition, an online qualifier every year that is 3 workouts in 3 weeks, and you are basically see how you do within your peer group or your age division across the world. And so it's sort of a measure of where you are with everybody else who CrossFits. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of hype that goes around or goes along with it. The gyms that participate typically have, they're just really excited about it. We just kind of came to the end of that. Actually, the last scores will be posted tonight. And so we'll find out as individuals how we compare to other people our age in the world and throughout the United States. And so it's a really exciting time.
That's one of the many great things about CrossFit is that, you get to compete with people from all over the world. And it really creates a sense of community for not just the local people that you're competing with, but even those people that you're competing with across the world. It's really a community oriented sport.
It really is. And it's really true when you hear people say, when you walk in the doors of a CrossFit gym, you leave your ego there, because it doesn't matter what age you are, what level you are, you're there for yourself to work out amongst family and friends and a community. I love it. I just love it.
Absolutely. CrossFit's done a good job of selling that part of it.
Yeah.
So tell us about, how to go ahead and stream Roddie's book. Tell us about your book, She's a Boss, because you are the boss. So tell us about it.
This kind of came out of the blue. I was not expecting, I've always wanted to be a part of a book, write a book, because I do a lot of writing personally. And this kind of came out of the blue, out of nowhere. A gal that I met through Facebook, she reached out to me. And she said, I've been following you, and I really like what you're doing. I think you have a great story. You're building a brand that people are resonating with. I really want you to consider being a part of this project. And we're going to have, 10 to 15 women who are going to share their stories about how they got where they are and what they're doing to make an impact in the world. And so I said, let me think about it. And I did, and I did, and I did. And I was really uncomfortable. I said yes, but I was really uncomfortable saying yes. And what's interesting is that I don't have a problem sharing my story in a venue like this or with people that I know, but sharing my story on paper and writing it was a whole new experience that was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. So,
and go ahead and share for some people that don't know you from your last podcast on our listeners and viewers. Go ahead and share some of your story.
Well, the story that I share in this book is basically my entrance into the CrossFit world and how I got there and how my health I'd been struggling with my health, and I had gained a ton of weight, and all of my girls were CrossFitters. And I had a daughter that basically said, you're going to go do this 6-week nutrition challenge. I don't care. You're doing it. And so I did, lost a bunch of weight, got hooked on CrossFit. And that's kind of the start of my CrossFit journey. But along the way, I also realized that I had a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And I had to really think about what I was going to do in that area of my life, and because it wasn't serving me. And so long story short, I gave up drinking, and I share that story in the book. And I gave up drinking, and and here we are. And so that's basically my story, is how I got into CrossFit, why I gave up drinking, what I gained as a result of that in my own personal life, and where I'm going from here forward, or where I hope God takes me.
Janet, what questions do you have for Roddie?
So when we give up something, there's a consequence. Have you found that there's people that have left your life because of that, or has it increased, or how does that look for you?
You mean as far as giving up the drinking? Oh, I didn't lose anything.
Good for you.
I didn't lose anything, because I was a drinker who drank in isolation. So I didn't have to give any friends or anything up. And so I gained, 1,000-fold over
Right.
what I ever gave up. And, I think the primary thing that I gained was I'm able now to live in my own truth and live congruent with what I profess to believe. And so, yeah, I gained way more than I ever gave up. So there were no consequences for me. I didn't have to give up relationships. Even if I did, those weren't relationships I probably wanted to be in anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So it's
Exactly.
all positive for me.
Yeah. So what was your after? So you started CrossFit and lost some weight before you quit drinking, correct?
I had no. I had quit drinking about 2 months before I jumped into the challenge, and I jumped into the challenge because I needed something. I'd given up something, and I needed something, and I'm a very competitive person and a very addictive personality, and so CrossFit was it for me.
Yeah. So because I was going to say, so what were the health? You obviously lost weight, but what were some of the other health benefits after you quit drinking and lost weight? Tell us, some of the things that you gained because of that. Did you have any, high blood pressure or diabetes coming on, anything like that?
Yeah, I was on the borderline of hypertension. I was, right there you're going to need to go on blood pressure medication. My A1C was through the roof because I was a wine drinker. I was ready to have to go on metformin. I was 35 to 40 pounds overweight. I wasn't, of course, sleeping well. My face was always red and puffy from the wine. And so when I quit drinking, all of those things corrected themselves within just a few months. And of course, I felt better. I was sleeping better. I had more clarity, and I was able to do the things that I love to do at a higher level.
It's amazing to hear that story, and we love sharing stories like that because we commonly in healthcare, we get told. I mean, there are still doctors and pharmacists that we debate with that say diabetes is not reversible, and with your hemoglobin A1C going through the roof, I don't know what that number was. You basically were diabetic,
Close to it.
Yeah. And if you weren't really diagnosed right there as a diabetic, you were going to eventually be there. If you weren't, if they looked at your insulin levels, I'm assuming your insulin levels were high, so you probably were diabetic. Actually, if they diagnosed it that way, but you reversed it. I mean,
I did.
By your lifestyle.
I did, with nutrition and removing alcohol from my life and working out and all of that. Yeah, within about 6 months, I had my A1C was back to normal, what's considered normal, and there was no more talk of having to go on metformin or anything like that.
Janet, what kind of comments or questions do you have about that?
Well, the first thing that always comes to mind for me is that anytime we have too much sugar floating around and our A1Cs are high and our insulin resistance is high, our body's in inflammation. So everything that she's describing, her brain is working better because she's not thinking foggy. Her overall skin health, if she was talking about that, I mean, the nutrients are getting to her skin and her other organs. So the positive of this is that overall disease, chronic disease situations have been lessened and lowered because that inflammation has been removed. And a lot of times people forget that those small lifestyle choices and changes have a huge impact, and those doors are swinging way open for you. So I'm super happy for you, because a lot of times people just go down that metformin route, and then you added another drug to your body because of a side effect of a toxin. I mean, really, that's really what alcohol had turned into in your body, was a toxin, because that glucose was sitting around causing inflammation and causing damage. So good for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And your comment about inflammation was another critical thing that happened for me when I first walked into the CrossFit gym after I'd been off alcohol for a couple of months. I mentioned this in the other podcast. I had frozen shoulders. I couldn't do anything.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
I couldn't do anything. And with the quitting of the drinking and changing up my nutrition and, a little bit of rehab and stuff, I have full mobility now in my shoulders. And I know for a fact that a big part of what was going on with me was poor nutrition, not exercising, and drinking too much.
Yep. And just think, Roddie, how many women or men, for that matter, have frozen shoulders, like you said, frozen shoulders, and they go in and they get surgery for them.
Yeah.
But it's
where I was headed.
Right. It's lifestyle related. I mean, you're a perfect example. Dr. Sean Baker, orthopedic surgeon, was on our podcast early in 2020, and he talked about how 85% of all orthopedic surgeries can be prevented if people change their lifestyle. 85%. That's a huge number. I mean, as pharmacists, we understand that most medication that is prescribed today is definitely lifestyle. And people could get off the medications if they change their lifestyle. But when I heard him talk about orthopedic surgeries, I mean, I get it, overweight people having total knees done or total hips done. I get that. But when he talked about 85% and he talked about shoulders for one, I was blown away. So it's good to hear these stories because people need to hear it, that there are other options besides medications and surgery. And most of them are just changing your lifestyle.
Absolutely. One of the things that they did first thing when I had that stroke is they put me on high blood pressure medication. And when I meet with the neurologist next week, I'm going to see if I can get off of that because of the side effects of the medication.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk to you a little bit about nutrition and for CrossFit athletes specifically. So Janet and I are endurance athletes. We ride our bike a lot. So we have to fuel different than CrossFit athletes, depending on the length of our workout, duration, and intensity. CrossFit's workouts are usually fairly short, relatively speaking, to an endurance event. So we often, but intense. So we often get the question about, what should I do pre-workout, during workout, post-workout? And for mostly gym workouts like CrossFit does, what do you do? What do you recommend for your clients?
Well, each client that I work with is a little bit different. Especially a CrossFit athlete is a little bit different in their routine. So for example, some CrossFit folks, anybody that's going to the gym, will be, I don't really like eating before I work out. It doesn't sit well with me. I don't really need a pre-workout. I just drink a cup of coffee. After my workout, yeah, I might eat, but I might eat, an hour later. My prescription for a CrossFit athlete is I don't particularly care when you eat because you've got your own routine. What I care about is that you're eating enough, you're eating the right combination of foods, and you're trying to eat something after your workout within 30 minutes that's high protein. And I prescribe protein. I run a really balanced approach, but I always run my CrossFit athletes a little bit higher in protein because I don't want them to lose lean mass. So, I don't really have a prescription for anyone as far as when you should eat. It's kind of up to them. I just say, this is what you need to eat. You fit it in your day, however it works for you.
Yeah. You have any comments on that, Janet?
I do, because I think for women and most women, because partly Shawn and I kind of, with our age, we were always taught, high carb, low protein, low fat. And for women, I see the trend that we tend to cut on our protein and we don't eat as much protein as what men are more likely to. So I like hearing that because I think that protein makes you feel fuller for one. And that way we can also maintain some of our muscle mass. And that's really important as we transition to different stages of our life, is that muscle mass makes a big difference in our health overall. So that's That's a great point that you pointed out, that making sure that protein's there is super important.
Well, and what's interesting is that typically women, I find, it's counterintuitive for them to eat more.
Right.
And that is my biggest struggle with coaching the female in general is that you want me to eat this much? You want me to eat how much protein? And it's counterintuitive. And most women don't even eat the equivalent of what their BMR is, their basal metabolic rate, what their body needs at rest, let alone working out. It's the biggest struggle that I have is getting women primarily to eat enough protein. Men are like, yeah, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. But women are like, oh.
Well, I think one of the problems is that, in our culture of bad food, we have trained our bodies to not listen to hunger signals. And I will say that with bad food, it's harder to listen to hunger signals, because if you're eating bad food, you just keep eating bad food. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I mean, I could eat all kinds of junk food and just keep eating it and eating it and eating it because you don't feel full. But I always do a challenge like this to somebody. I'm like, I dare somebody to eat too much steak, red meat. I dare you. I mean, at one sitting, when I'm hungry, I can really only eat about 12 ounces. If I'm super hungry, maybe 16. And I am done. And literally, like last night's Saturday night's dinner, I literally ate 16 ounces of steak, and I didn't have a potato or anything. It was there. Janet made it, but I was done after the steak. So protein is so important, and real food.
Real food. You can put somebody, if you're watching your calories, you can put somebody on a 1,500 calorie a day diet, and they can eat 1,500 calories in Twinkies.
Yep.
Or they can
basically
eat
2 Twinkies.
Right. Or they can eat 1,500 calories and do a combination of protein, carbs, and fats and have fuel.
Right. And I had a doctor tell us this on the podcast, tell me this, and our listeners and viewers, a few weeks ago on our podcast, Dr. Ovadia, cardiologist that, is basically going against the grain a little bit and talking to patients about how to change their diet and lifestyle instead of having drugs and cardiac surgery. Anyway, he said this. He said that our bodies don't necessarily sense calories.
Right.
It senses nutrients.
Right.
So we get full when our body says, wow, that's enough nutrients. And you think about that, the Twinkie analogy.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, I think a Twinkie is like 500 calories. I don't know exactly, but literally you could probably eat 3 or 4 Twinkies in a day and you would be at your maximum calories for the day.
Right.
But you're not going to feel full. And even if you did, an hour later, you'd be hungry. But if you eat, 1,500 calories of steak, which is, 2 big steaks, you're going to feel full for 24 hours. Seriously.
Well, think of the visual of that.
Right.
These 2 steaks are 4,
Right.
Yeah.
But it isn't just the visual too. I mean, I think the way carbohydrates spike in our body so fast and then they fall signals people to feel like they're hungry. And where other foods, when you have that, your body feels full physically, but also that sugar isn't spiking. Those proteins and fats are slowly going into the system, so you don't have this huge burst of, a spike and then a fall. And I think when we get so used to those spikes, we listen to that because that's what we know, and that doesn't, so. Oh, I must be hungry. Oh, I must, where that just doesn't happen when you have the protein appropriately. And it is a really hard thing to understand because a lot of people will just say it's calories in and calories out, but it doesn't seem to work out that way. How about, what do you agree? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Roddie?
Yeah, calories in and calories out doesn't work at all for me. And I don't subscribe to that at all. Yes, you need to be in a calorie deficit, obviously, if you want to lose weight, and all of those. And there's all kinds of things that you take into consideration when you're working with a client. But for me, I coach my clients. Food is fuel, period. I need you to eat regularly throughout the day, every few hours, so that you can keep your blood sugar level, so you're not having those spikes and those increases and decreases. And it works. If they stick to it and they do it, it works. Clean, whole foods, nutrient dense, eat a lot of protein, whatever you're prescribed, don't be afraid of the calories. If I put you on something, I've done a calculation. It's going to work.
Yeah.
If you let it work, if you stay consistent, it will work.
Well, and I think you just said it right there. It's consistency.
Mhm.
And, when somebody follows a plan that you give them, obviously, you know what you're talking about. So stay consistent on that plan and it will work. Now,
Yeah.
if they're a slave to the scale and they're weighing every day and they say, well, gosh, I ate the food you wanted me to eat and I gained 2 pounds. Well, don't freak out about that. I mean,
Right.
the scale weight goes like this. It's long term. Long term, what are you looking for? And weight's probably not the most important thing. It's probably, how we look in body composition, not necessarily weight.
Yeah, lean mass, body fat. You can be losing weight, losing lean mass, and gaining fat. You're just skinny fat.
Right, exactly. And you're not healthy.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
still not healthy at all.
No.
Right.
So as you mentioned early on in our podcast about where you wanted to go. So tell us where you want to go. Where do you want this coaching business to be? Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I'm still kind of working that out in my head. But I really want Nutrition by Design to be able to get to a place where, and I think I'm already starting there, to make a big impact, a massive impact in the lives of the people that we serve. So going forward, of course, I'm still coaching clients, and that's what I love to do. That's my sweet spot. But I'm going to be doing some partnering with a really good friend of mine who owns Fit 15, Building Strong Humans. And her and I are putting together a course, a 9-week course that's going to be coming out here. We're not quite sure yet, probably within the next couple of months. And then I'm hoping to be doing some teaching, doing some nutrition seminars, and that type of thing. And then I'm also working on adding some different looking packages to my nutrition program. Right now I have a 6-week package, and that's all. The reason I had that was because I was working full time and it's all I could manage. So now I'm looking to expand the types of packages that I offer in duration, partnering with hopefully a local meal prep. Is that what you call them? Meal prep company for those folks who don't want to meal prep and want to just order their food. So in 5 years, I would love to be able to see Nutrition by Design, me just doing coaching and having maybe 2 or 3 other coaches alongside with me, and just growing my online presence and growing my local presence.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing that. We want to help you do that. You've got an incredible story, and you've already helped a lot of clients, and we want to help you help more. And our goal of this podcast is basically to as it always has been, is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health. And you have definitely showed us how to do that today, not only with your own health journey, but how you help clients to reach their maximum potential. So we really appreciate you, Roddie. We really do.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
And what is the best way to get a hold of you if people have any questions?
You can get a hold of me on my phone number, or by my phone number, 509-308-7587. You can get a hold of me on Facebook. My website is in design right now and under construction because we're revamping it. So my phone number and Facebook is probably the best way to reach me.
And your Facebook is Nutrition by Design. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Do you have a Facebook? Let's see if we can stream that really fast. Over on the left, there we go, and then search it. And so, Roddie, what's the best way to get a hold of you during the day if somebody wants to stop by and say hi? Are you at the gym most of the time?
I come here primarily just to meet clients and do podcasts. So if somebody wants to come and see where I live, or my office space, they just need to call me in. We'll set up a time and we can come upstairs and chat.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, we'll work on, in the edited version of the podcast, we'll stream your website so people can get a hold of you. And we'll definitely stream your book website also so people can buy your book. And thanks for being a boss.
Roddie. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on. And Roddie, you probably want to tune in Thursday. I have Matt on. He's in Florida. He talks about nutrition and diet also. And we're going to basically be talking about how the influence of what parents do influences their kids. And, we're going to call it something that's not politically correct. Doesn't sound very nice, but it's true. Fat parents equal fat kids. We're going to literally call it that. And it's true. And I've been there. So I've been fat and my kids have been fat. And I changed that. And the way I changed my kid was after I changed myself. It's really hard to look your kids in the eye and tell them you want them to do something when you're not doing it. So we get it all the time where we have parents say, well, my kids are overweight and I want to help them with that. And I just look at them and I'm just frank. And it's not because I'm mean. It's because I love them and I want them to be healthy. It's like, well, it starts with you. So you tune in 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Thursday, our midweek podcast. Roddie, thank you for being on today. Appreciate it. Listeners and viewers, thank you for being on Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Thank you for tuning in.